Thank you so much. I am truly honored to be here with you all. Rabbi, thank you for hosting. It's a beautiful synagogue, beautiful people. It's been a great encouragement to be. And Matt, for your great words and all your extraordinary work. This is a tragic anniversary. I was on a Zoom call a little while ago with RJC and Senator Norm Coleman, and we were reflecting on the anniversary and how tragic it is and how difficult it is. I said in some ways it seems like it just happened yesterday, but in other ways it seems like an eternity. And it certainly does for the families of the hostages that are still there and all of us who are so deeply affected. This is, since World War II, there's not been anything like this that's happened at this level, of course, the Jewish people and what it's unleashed and what you said. And it's been a very difficult thing for all of us. It has been a moment for us to speak with moral clarity and conviction and consistency to say that there is a good versus evil. There is light versus darkness. That this really is civilization versus barbarism, as Prime Minister Netanyahu said in the days following October 7th. And the people who are unable to see that or don't have the courage to say it are part of the problem. And we've been reflecting on what October 7th has meant and the lessons that it has taught all of us. I think it boils down to three things, among many others, but three things I just shared with us, the RJC group. I think one thing that we've learned here is that we can never let our guard down, right? You cannot take the threat of anti-Semitism and this radical terrorism lightly. There are barbarians in this world, and they will do evil things. And they have to be met with an appropriate level of force to prevent that from happening. The other thing we've learned with regard to stability around the world and our geopolitical stability that we have around the globe is that if America is weak, everybody's in trouble. And Israel, not the least of those. What's happened is when America shows weakness on the world stage, our adversaries, the enemies of freedom, take advantage of that. You cannot appease terrorists. You cannot appease terrorist regimes. You have to call a spade a spade. I believe that in the Reagan principle of peace through strength. And I think if the White House and America projects weakness on the world stage, I think we can see right now exactly what comes from that. And so I think we have to take that lesson to heart. I think we also have to recognize one more thing, that our enemies, the greatest adversaries of America, are on the side of the terrorist regimes. Russia and China are in coordination with Iran and its proxies, the terrorists. If we don't prevail here, if America does not show a strong hand, if we don't stamp this out, then liberty is in jeopardy around the world. Everybody, freedom everywhere is in jeopardy. This conflict is bigger than just the defense of Israel. It's also about America. It's also about the principles of right and wrong. It's about whether liberty survives around the globe. This is not a game. It is not some small thing. And we need leaders who are willing and capable and have the courage to stand and say it. And we've not had that enough. And we have a faithful election in 29 days. And I don't want to give you a political speech here, but I'm just going to state the obvious. Okay, all right, say it. In the Baptist church, I don't go full politics on it. Let me just tell you that, obviously, you return Donald J. Trump to the White House, we return Trump. Our adversaries fear Donald Trump, and there's real value in that. He's not predictable, and he's not weak. He'll pick up the phone and call the Ayatollah and tell him what's up. And I believe that we're going to have a strong November, and I believe I'm going to grow my House majority, so the job's a little easier. I believe we're going to win the Senate back as well. Why that matters is not just for the economy, not just for energy policy, not just for the reduced crime and the cost of living. All those things are true. But most important, it's so that we can project strength on the world stage again. and that our enemies will fear us and our allies will respect us, and we can take our rightful place that we have had since World War II, when the leadership of the free world was placed upon the shoulders of the United States. God in his infinite wisdom decided to give us that responsibility, and among those great responsibilities is standing with our dear friend and ally, Israel. Senator Coleman, Norm asked me at the end of the RJC call, he said, this is a deep conviction you have. We know you personally. A lot of our folks joining us, hundreds of people on the Zoom tonight, don't know you personally. Would you just share just a moment of reflection of why this is so important? It's not just a political position for you. And I said, no, it's not, Norm, it's not. You know that. To me, not only is it important for us to stand with Israel and be side by side with our Jewish friends and neighbors, to fight anti-Semitism on the campuses and to go out and meet the angry mobs and tell them that they're wrong. Not only do we have to fight it even in the halls of Congress, as you said, the rise of this madness, it's important for stability politically around the world. It's important for the defense of small d democracy around the world. Of course it is. But it's also important to me as a matter of faith. You know, when I study Scripture, I read the book of Genesis, and I read the Torah, the Old Testament. You know, when I read those passages, it is very clear that God says, the Almighty says, He will bless the nation that blesses Israel, and He will curse the nation that curses Israel. I'm going to be on the right side of that one. And I think that why this matters so much is that the beauty of America, we live in the greatest nation in the history of the world. We'll say Israel notwithstanding, but we're the greatest nation in history. We're the strongest, we're the most successful, the most free, most powerful, most benevolent nation it's ever been. And there is a reason that we are that great, exceptional nation. It's because we're built on the Judeo-Christian foundation that made us the great nation that we are. It is the principles that come from the Torah. It is the Ten Commandments. It is the basic building block that made us the free society. G.K. Chesterton was a great British philosopher, and he said one time, America is the only nation in the world that was founded upon a creed. He said it's listed with theological lucidity or clarity in the Declaration of Independence. What is the creed? We hold these truths, Jefferson wrote on behalf of the founders, we hold these truths to be self-evident. I go and speak to university groups, the non-protest Hamas-loving university groups, and I say, hey, by the way, students, the self-evident truth, what is the self-evident truth? Have you ever stopped and think about it? It's something you cannot not know. It's something that's obvious. The founders said, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Not born equal, created equal by the Almighty. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among those, the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. See, our founders got together and they acknowledged the basic, obvious truth. That God is the one that gives us our rights, not the government. Right? And they set up a system of government where sometimes when I'm with the university students, I'll have a whiteboard or a chalkboard or something. I'll go up and do this illustration. I'll show you why your nation's exceptional in 5 words, the word picture. So I'll write G-O-D, really big at the top. I go halfway down the board and I write king, lowercase k. I do a bunch of arrows down and I write the people / the subjects. I say, now look, what you're looking at right here was the philosophy of every government before us. Before there was a nation that was founded upon this creed, there was this. And this was an old medieval notion they called the divine right of kings, because they said, they acknowledged that there was an almighty up there, but the king, the earthly king, was the boss. The king is the one, all the arrows down, that gives you your rights. It can tell you who you can marry, you know, what property you can hold, sometimes how many kids you can have, what you're going to do for a career. The king was the boss. Well, our founders come along and they say, you know what, that's not right. Because they were students of Scripture, and they recognized the self-evident truth that rights come from God, not the government. So you know what they did? It sparked a revolution. They said, the king's a tyrant. And they got an eraser. I go up to the board and I say, what we did was we erased the king. And then I erase all the arrows that come from the king to the people. And I say, now I draw the arrows from God down to the people. I say, that is the premise of America. We're the first nation that did that. It was a revolutionary concept. It's the creed that says we are a nation under God, as Lincoln later said in the Gettysburg Address. We're a nation under God. We're dedicated to that proposition that a nation of, by, and for the people themselves should not perish from the earth. Right? That's what makes us different. But I said, listen, students, here's the problem right now. Here's the problem you have. The reason you got these violent protests and crazy people who want to kill their fellow students is because they're forgetting the most important self-evident truth that was in the very beginning of the birth certificate of our nation. You know what? I take the eraser. They're ignoring the presence and existence of God. So then I erase all the arrows that goes God. And all I've got is a black marker and an ominously circled people, just the people. I say, now let me tell you something. If you think that is a happy circumstance, you are certainly wrong. Because if you're not made by God, if you're not made in His image, as Scripture teaches us, it means that you do not have any inestimable value. Because see, the thing is, we're all made in God's image, and so every single person has inestimable dignity and value. Your value is not related in any way to the color of your skin or what zip code you live in or where you went to school. Your value is inherent because it's given to you by God Himself. But if there is no God, then nobody can tell us what's right and wrong. And everybody decides it for themselves. And by the way, kids, this is the basis of Marxism, socialism. Because if you don't have individual value before God, you're just another social animal. And you got to be controlled and directed. And guess who does that? Tyrants. The people who have the power. You know what that leads us right back into tyranny. So hey, if you want to maintain our position as the great exceptional nation, you've got to remember the foundational principles. And you have to remember there is a God, and He certainly is just, and His rules will be defied at our peril. And that's the lesson that we have to teach these university students. And if we don't stand in a moment right now when they're threatening the very survival and existence of their classmates, then what are we going to, how can we defend the principles? We've empowered all of our committee chairs in Congress to investigate this madness on these campuses. Yeah, she finally resigned at Columbia. I told her to resign the day I was there. I got all my committee chairmen, they've been investigated. You're going to see some real action on this because you know what? We're looking at the funding streams of these universities. They get billions of dollars in taxpayer funds. They don't deserve it. If they can't uphold the basic constitutional freedoms of their students, their security, they don't deserve taxpayer funds. These universities, Ivy Leagues and others, they get tax-exempt endowments. Some of these universities have $1 billion endowment. Guess what? You don't get favorable tax treatment if you can't protect the security and the safety of your Jewish students. You're not entitled to that. We're going to make sure that. The student visa program, get ready, okay? If you're an aspiring young terrorist from a Middle Eastern country, you don't get to come to our campuses and our visa program and prey upon your Jewish students. We're not going to allow it. You're going back home, kid. We're not going to do that. I didn't even think of that, Chad. That's fantastic. You know, the next time I face down an angry mob of protesters, I'll just start chanting back to them. Look, we're going to apply common sense. We're going to adjust the statutes and the laws to make sure we protect our Jewish neighbors and friends. And it's going to be able to do the right thing. I'll leave you with this thought. One of my favorite characters of the Bible, of the Torah, is Nehemiah, the great warrior, the rebuilder of the walls of Jerusalem, right? And you all know the story well. And I've taught it in Sunday school for so many years because it's one of my favorite stories. But as you know, Nehemiah was a cupbearer to the king and gets permission to go back and survey the walls of the city of David. And they've been ransacked, you know? And he goes back and he reports to the Israelis who are held in captivity in Babylon. He says that the walls have been broken down and burned with fire. And he said, and Nehemiah was so brokenhearted over that. He was brokenhearted at the foundations being destroyed like that. Psalm 11:3 says, the foundations be destroyed. What will the righteous do? It's not really a rhetorical question. It's one we have to answer right now. And Nehemiah was so brokenhearted, it broke his heart. The things that broke God's heart broke Nehemiah's heart. And he gathered up all the people, all the Israelis that were there, and the Jewish people that were there in Babylon, and he said, the city of David, the walls have been broken down and burned with fire. He said, let us rebuild the walls and we will no longer be in disgrace. And so they responded to Nehemiah's call because he had such conviction, moral clarity, and he said, let's go do it. And they went back and they rebuilt the walls. And you know the story. It was such a dangerous time. The enemies of the Jews were encamped around them.
And they slept in their armor. They had a trowel with one hand as they were rebuilding the giant wall, and they had a sword in the other at the same time. And it was an urgent hour. The hour was late. The crisis was great. It's very similar to the situation that we're facing right now. And so people say, how do you have the energy to keep going? You don't even seem downtrodden. You are 4 inches taller since you became speaker. They beat you down mercilessly, but you seem to be okay. You have a good spirit about this. Well, I do. I think very much. I think very much we're in a time like Nehemiah was. I think it's up to us to rebuild the walls. And if the beauty of the story, the best part about Nehemiah is chapter 4 in the Old Testament, and it says, it lists the builders of the wall. And what you notice if you study it is that as they went through, it lists all the builders. This group did this part, this family did this part. This group, they rebuilt the dung gate. They rebuilt the dung gate. Yeah, somebody had to build that part. No one had pride about it, right? Nobody was doing it because they wanted attention. They weren't doing it because they wanted a title. They were doing it because it was the right thing. And you notice in the story that some people just helped rebuild the wall right in front of their house. The elderly, the infirm, they just did a little bit. They couldn't do much, they did a little bit. Some built whole long sections of the wall. But the beauty of the whole story was that everybody did something. Everybody. They joined hands. They had a sword in one hand, a trowel in the other. Everybody pitched in, and that's why they rebuilt the wall in 52 days, to the shock and awe of the enemies encamped around them. It was a miraculous thing, and we can do it again. And I believe that God is not done with America yet. And I believe that God is certainly not done with Israel. He never will be. And I believe that when we're united together, we can defend what is right. We can defend the light. We can have that burning in the darkness, and that's going to make the difference. I'm like you, Matt. I didn't know what I was going to say when I stood up here, and I didn't know I was about to give you a sermon, and I'm sorry. I just know this is a very important moment for America and for Israel. And as we remember this tragic anniversary, we have to remember what it is we're fighting for. And I'm so comforted to know that we're in it together and that we are on the right side of history and the right side of what's right and wrong. God bless you.